I think it was a wheat field that stubble wheat field that she just burst off the glove. I wasn't even 100% sure what she was going for. It must have been a good 30, 40 meters across the field, and as I saw him getting closer, a rook got up off the ground, so also 4 times her size, and as it got off the ground, she hit it hard, and she hung onto it like you won't believe.
Hello everyone, welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Told podcast, and for the next installment of this series that is brought to you by the Cape Falconry Club located in and around the Western Cape in South Africa. Many thanks to them for their invite to help make this series possible, and I really hope that you all have been enjoying it so far. I also need to mention the Falconry Heritage Trust for their part in helping to make this series happen as well. Without their sponsorship and other grant that they awarded to be able to help pay for the airfare to get to this meet and to get to this area, this wouldn't have been possible either. So many thanks to them. If you want to find out more about them and help support their cause, then just head to www.falconryheritage.org. And also a big thank you to our new continued sponsor in Yaga Crafts from Poland. If you haven't had a chance to check out any of his equipment yet, I highly recommend you do so. As you've heard me brag about many times before, it's the highest quality handmade equipment that you can get. At least part of the highest quality anyway, and there's no way you can really go wrong with it. The anklets are amazing, and so are his new hybrid jesses that he just started making as well. So, like I said, if you haven't had a chance to check him out yet, just head to Baba Yaga Goshawk on Instagram, and the other information to get in touch with him is also on our website at falconrytold.com. And the next guest in our series is another falconer who also happens to be a veterinarian. He not only is from South Africa, but has also spent a lot of time in the UK as well, doing different parts of his practice. And we'll talk more about that during the conversation. You'll hear plenty about that too with some of his prior experiences. Getting to know Kyle was a pleasure, and along with the rest of these falconers that I got a chance to talk to and meet while I was there. And he also was kind enough to introduce me to a slow gin for the first time too. It was really good stuff. But anyway, we'll just go ahead and turn things over to this conversation with Kyle. He had a lot of really neat insights from a veterinary standpoint as well. And I hope that you enjoy hearing about his experiences, not only from being in South Africa, but also from being in the UK too. It made things a little interesting from getting multiple standpoints from having practiced falconry in a couple different countries. So without saying anything further, we'll go ahead and turn things over to this conversation with Dr. Kyle Perrin. Here we go. What are the name of these birds again?
Which one's the one shouting?
Yeah,
the hardy-daws.
How's it pronounced again?
Hardy-daw.
Hardy-daw.
Yeah, it's a type of ibis.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, they're really annoying.
Yeah, they're everywhere, and they make a racket the whole time.
Yeah, the listeners, I think...
And none of the birds want to hunt them.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, the listeners, I think, of this series are going to get some... It just keeps going.
Well, at least you can say it's wildlife.
No, it's funny. They're going to get a lot of interesting sounds during this series, I think. But yeah, man, no, it's like I said, one of the things I like the most about doing these different series, especially the international ones, is getting to meet new people and also getting to find out how things are done in different areas. And remind me again, I don't know if you told me or not this morning already, but where are you from exactly?
So I grew up in Cape Town, went to my whole school career in Cape Town, and but only started falconry much later. Born and bred in South Africa, and all my schooling in the Western Cape.
And refresh my memory, you're a vet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's how I got into falconry through veterinary science.
Really? Okay. Well, how So, I mean, what's the schooling like for that compared to, other countries here? Is it pretty comparable or?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much similar to training in other countries, especially Western countries. So developed countries like the United Kingdom, Europe, America. It's quite formalized and there's good standards, and we've got it's a bias towards to small animals, like the dogs and cats, is that they focus a lot on that. And whereas some of the other countries in Africa, their training is far more agricultural, so livestock orientated rather than the small animal side of it.
Gotcha. So, as far as like other parts of Africa and stuff, especially too, I mean, are they also doing like specialty tracks or anything for, some of the, the bigger animals and some of the more what we would consider exotics, like the lions, the elephants and things like that too? Or?
Yeah. So in the past 20 years, there has been a lot more movement to training the vets properly to do wildlife medicine, and giving them specific training for what you would need to be doing with that. And over time, that branch of veterinary sciences has grown as the game industry has grown in South Africa. Then the veterinary component of that has grown with it.
And I mean, how often are you involved in any of that aspect of things? Very often, being as you live kind of down here away from it a little bit. Or?
I'm not involved in big game at all. Living in the city in Cape Town, then I mainly work with cats and dogs, the companion animals. I have got a bit of training in exotic animals, meaning like birds and reptiles and that kind of thing. So I'll work with those patients occasionally, but mainly pet-owned birds, and then obviously a couple of raptors every now and again. But big game, I'm not involved. That's a lot of that is further up country, and anyone that's dealing with game in the Western Cape, usually they're using a vet that's doing a lot of farm work. And
down here, like I said, I would imagine in a bigger area like this, it would be more kind of pet, focused. I mean, I would imagine that would be more where your business comes from.
Yeah, if you're working in a built up city, in a residential area, that's where most of your client base is going to come from, and unfortunately, paying clients are going to be the ones that there's an emotional attachment to the pets, and to be able to operate as a business, you have to have clients that are willing to pay for your services. And there's a lot of smaller wildlife in the Western Cape that occasionally comes in, but you've got to be very careful how you do it, and what you do, because even that in the Western Cape, the Cape Nature wants to be they've put down very strict rules of what you can do and can't do, and so you don't want to have wildlife in your hospital, and not be doing it 100% by the book with Cape Nature and that. And so I think most clinics try and avoid doing too much with wildlife, and we've got good systems in place, like the SPCA in Cape Town. They've built a specific building and hospital for wildlife. So they have seals in there, kestrels and geese and mongoose and all sorts of things in that hospital facility. So it does allow private veterinarians to then contact the SPCA, and then they can take over the care of those patients in a facility that's suited to them, and then they also have channels for appropriate release and proper release sites.
Cool. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I've now gotten a chance to talk to vets from the US, from Mexico, from the UK, and now here. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure that it's probably like a lot of the stuff that we kind of deal with. I mean, it's going to be a little different depending on which part of the world you're from. And I'm sure the rules and the regulations have are pretty varied depending on, but I mean, like, how often do some of those rules and regulations change here? I mean, how long have you been practicing?
I've been practicing for 15 years. But the majority of that, I was in the UK for 8 of those years, practicing there. So,
kind of getting the formal education side of things, or like fellowship,
it was just purely as for work and travel opportunities. The qualification here in South Africa from the University of Pretoria is recognised in the UK. So you don't have to write any exams. You just have to prove that you're a registered member of the South African Council, and they recognise the standard of education, so you can then practice in. So a letter of good standing with the South African Veterinary Council, and then you can practice in the UK. So we went there and for work and travel. So we worked a little bit, and then used UK as a base to travel around, go to travel Europe a bit, travel South America a bit, and that's and then while I was there, I did do a little bit of postgraduate studies in exotic animal medicine. So once again, avian work, reptiles, a little bit of primate stuff. So just a little bit of extra certificate just to get a bit more in-depth information into that field, because that is a line of veterinary that I've got a lot of interest in, and I've spent a lot of time with the exotics and the exotic companion animals or exotic animal pets, and that was an opportunity to do a qualification in the UK and get a little bit more in-depth knowledge.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's cool that that's reciprocated in that way. It saves I'm sure, an exponential amount of hassle, and I mean, it's nice being able to have the the diversity and being able to have the options to go different places and do different things. I mean, I wish I mean, I work in the medical field also, but I mean, more from like I said, the traditional human standpoint, I guess. I'm a respiratory therapist.
Okay.
So I don't know if I told you that this morning or not. I don't think I had, but I mean, I wish that my licensure was reciprocated throughout the whole country. And I wish that, I mean, unfortunately, my profession really is only present in just a handful of countries. And if you have that option as something that's kind of more widespread, like a veterinarian, like a widespread need, it's pretty cool that you have those options that you can just kind of go in, different places and not have to worry about all the extra educational factors and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It opens a lot of doors and gives you a lot of opportunities, but it's only specific countries. Like for us qualifying in South Africa to get to the States, for your side, for example, I think I haven't looked into it, but as far as I understand, lots of the states have their own. You'd have to write an exam for each different state you'd want to practice in, and that's how I understand it. And so working in America is out unless I go and sit the full examinations again. Most of Europe I can't work in. There's certain countries that recognize it. So it's not like a free pass everywhere, but there are certain countries that have got agreements, and we've gone over to their universities. They've come over to our universities and said, okay, the standard is acceptable, and the basics and your foundation for your training is at a good enough standard, and we're allowed to work there. But it made a huge difference for us and allowed us to go and see and work in a different part of the world and gave us opportunities that we wouldn't have been able to do here at the tip of Africa.
Yeah, because I mean, everywhere else you go, you're going to see things that you're not going to get to see here, and vice versa, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the U.S. is kind of weird like that. I mean, for me to be able to practice in different states, I have to literally apply for and jump through each state's hoops. Like I hold licenses now in around 10 or 11 states.
Sure.
And literally their requirements to maintain that licensure is different in every single state, so on and so forth. Their amount of continuing education requirements and all this type of stuff, it's different.
And
every
are
state.
you working in all those states? Is is it beneficial for you to be registered with all of them?
Well, I mean, it gives me options, kind of like you have options in a way. Like, if I was just working a full-time job again, then it wouldn't be as important. But since I've already been in like the contract, travel, side of healthcare for 3 years now.
It's almost like we'd say locum.
It's sort of
taking on a week here or a month there.
Yeah, usually ours are about 13-week, agreements. So a few months. But I mean, it is beneficial to have options because you never know which state at any given time is going to have needs and this, that, and the other. So if you only have licensure in like 1 or 2 states or something, your options are really limited.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have as many options as if you had, of course, more licenses in different states.
Yeah.
I mean, out of all the licenses that I've had, I've used almost all of them except for maybe 3 or 4, I think. So, I mean, I've worked in over the last few years, I've worked in 7 different states.
Sure.
So, like I said, the only reason I'm bringing this up is, I mean, I'm just, like I said, it's easy for me to kind of relate a little bit. I wish I could go into multiple countries. Technically we can. I mean, I know like the Middle East, for example, sometimes they contract out our profession to work over there in certain parts of the Middle East. Yeah. And I know Mexico recently has started having respiratory therapists in their hospitals, and I think Canada too. I can't remember for sure, but at any rate, like I said, it's cool though that, like I said, you have the option and you've gotten this wide breadth of experience now, and all these different these different countries that you have been able to work. And like I said, I mean, I'm sure coming back, it's given you a wider a baseline to work off of. I mean, there's nothing that's a substitute for experience.
Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to, while in the UK, do a lot of locum work. So similar to what you're doing now, spending a couple of months in that clinic, then going and spending a couple of weeks there. And so I got to work within the UK, multiple different clinics.
Yep, there comes downpour again.
Yeah, I don't think we're going out in an hour. To multiple different clinics and see how different clinics work and how they do different things. And the clinical work, the veterinary side of it, stays pretty much the same. But the way that they run a clinic and the way they do things and structure their day changes from each business to each business. And for me, that was interesting and beneficial. So you're not closed-minded on how things need to be done and how things need to be run, and your day needs to start like this and end like this. So it was nice to see how different people worked, and I worked with a lot of different vets and vet nurses and technicians, and it was fantastic to meet people. It was really good experience.
Yeah, I can see definitely how, if nothing else, it would let you be able to adapt to different situations. And there's nothing that it's another one of those things that there's no substitute for, I mean, and it's kind of like, hospitals, you never know exactly what you're going to walk into.
Yeah.
And what kind of day it's going to be, because literally every minute of every day has the possibility to drop a nuclear bomb on you as to what you're going to walk through the door. Some days there's not much, and some days it's just hell on earth for 12 hours or however long, and but yeah, I mean, as far as some of the subspecialties, I mean, does South Africa allow you to have like an avian specialty if you want?
So we do have specialists, and you can get specialist qualifications. So, but then it will be small animal medicine, small animal surgery. There's obviously the equine side of it. You'll have equine specialists, and but the exotic side of it, so the avian, except for maybe poultry, I'm pretty sure there's poultry specialists, because that's obviously a massive big industry in South Africa. But when it comes to pet birds and the avian industry in that regard, so not your commercial poultry industry, but your pet, there hasn't been specialists or recognized specialists. So there are lots of vets that are working purely with with exotics, and there are a couple of purely exotic clinics out there, and vets with fantastic knowledge and experience, and they're doing some brilliant work, but the South African Veterinary Council doesn't recognize them as a registered specialist because they haven't had a formalized training. So there's no training program with an internship and a residency and honors degree and an exam. So, and South Africa is very strict, obviously, as with all the countries that are wanting a good level of standard of practice, is that you have to, if you want to call yourself a specialist, you have to go through that residency phase where you're working underneath a specialist. And so it's going to be difficult to get in place here because we don't have somebody that's, if a registered specialist is not recognized, then you don't have anybody to work underneath. And
right.
So the option would be to go overseas and do a residency.
Yeah, and get their credential and their specialist recognized in their country.
Yes.
You're not necessarily recognized in yours, but you can at least say on your resume that you have that specialty in another country.
And then what the plan would be to work towards, like, being recognized by the university and maybe working there. But that's a path that would take, I think, a long time and a significant financial implication.
Yeah.
So it's not a path that I would follow, but I think there are some vets coming through now that really would like to get that recognition.
Yeah.
But it'll be a hard slog to get it properly recognized and registered.
Yeah, and there's got to be a demand for it too. You know,
Yeah,
it seems like, you know, there. Well, I don't know if you've noticed this also in your practice or not, or the time that you have been in veterinary medicine, but like I've noticed, at least in healthcare too, there's got to be a demand for certain things, or else, you know, if there's not like a financial motivation behind it, then it's not going to happen. There comes the thunder.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Just had some good lightning just behind your head there. Yeah. No, 100%. Unfortunately, money makes the world go round, and if you don't have that, if you don't have the clients willing to spend the money on their pets, and the problem with lots of the exotics is your exotic clinics are seeing a lot of rats and a lot of guinea pigs and hamsters and budgies, and so, and you've got to make sure that mentality of, oh, but a budgie costs you 50 Rand at the pet shop, why would I spend 5,000 Rand on all these tests?
Yeah.
So you do still have a little bit of that, but that's slowly changing. The market in South Africa, the pet industry is slowly changing over time, and as I think it is everywhere in the world, people are they're seeing their pets as like members of the family, almost like kids, and they. And then the exotics are slowly coming in with that. Rabbits are becoming more popular, and people are becoming very attached to their pet rabbits, and they're no longer just sitting in a hutch outside. They're in the house and they're interacting, and that's slowly changing. And with time, I do think we'll get to that point, like in the States and in the UK, the two places that I know that there are the registered specialists. Mm-hmm. I think we will get to that point at some time, but it's going to take time. And in South Africa, in that sort of industry, we're always a little bit behind the first world countries like the States and the UK, because we slowly just building up to that, and there has to be, like you mentioned, there has to be the money there in that market to push it along. So yeah, nothing happens quickly in any form of healthcare. Yeah, really. I mean, it just takes forever. But, well, I mean, as far as, you mentioned that, the veterinary side of things was your pathway to falconry. Go ahead and tell us about that a little bit. Well, when I qualified, the first year I worked at the academic hospital in the exotics clinic. So I just did, for my first 14 months of work, I just worked with birds, primates, reptiles, nothing else. It was purely exotics. And one of my classmates gave a vet in Dubai my number, and they offered me a job in Dubai working with falcons in one of the hospitals there. So going over and doing purely falcon work. And So as the birds come in, doing health checks before the season, so a pre-season health check and then a post-season health check, and obviously any problems in between. And before I went, my girlfriend at the time, my now wife, gave me a Philip Glacier falconry textbook so that I could just get an idea of what falconry was all about and get an idea, because the medicine side was one thing, but I wanted to know what they're doing. So I had that, and I read that before I went out, and got a bit of exposure to falconry. And that, although Philip Glacier and the UK style of falconry is very different to what they're doing in Dubai, but I was there for a couple of months, and through the one hunting season, got to work with really impressive birds and vast numbers of birds, of falcons, gerfalcons, sakers, hybrids. It was a very eye-opening experience. And then when I came back after that one season there, I looked into falconry, and I found the Cape Falconry Club, and got in contact with them. Started going out and seeing guys fly their birds. But then that was just when I moved over to the UK. So I never really flew a bird. But I kept in contact with the guys in the Cape, and I started going out and meeting people in the UK. So between coming back from Dubai to picking up my first bird to fly was 6 years. So that whole time, because we were locoming and moving around the UK quite a lot at the time, and every month in a different city, and couldn't feasibly pick up a bird at that stage. But then we took a permanent job. Once I had a permanent job, I got myself a little European sparrowhawk, female European sparrowhawk, and imprinted her, and I flew her for 4 seasons there, and that's my start into it. But it took a long time from realizing that it was something I was interested in doing and wanting to get involved in, to actually picking up a bird. It was a 6-year wait before I could actively start, because my situation just didn't allow it to do it properly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's an interesting start too. I mean, like imprinting a bird for your first falconry bird too. It was interesting, because
in the UK, there's no, at that time there was no wild take.
Yeah, you have to, you still pretty much have to stick to captive bred.
I think there was something about but the main thing is it's all captive bred, and I had to look at my situation and what I wanted to fly. And to me, flying a sparrowhawk, a European sparrowhawk, was very appealing. It's what I could get quarry for, but I did get a lot of pushback from falconers in the UK, saying that it's a bad decision. When I asked them what equipment should I buy, they said, "Oh, buy a bigger travel box, because you're just going to kill your sparrowhawk in the first 6 months, and you're going to buy yourself a Harris hawk anyway afterwards." And so there was a lot of pushback saying that yes, it's a bad choice, but that wasn't an option to fly a parent reared sparrowhawk. That would have been a disaster. But yeah, it was a fantastic bird. I enjoyed it a lot. I made a lot of mistakes, but we flew and we hunted for 4 seasons, and quite successfully, and it was good fun. I really enjoyed it.
Well, what mistakes do you think you made? Was it more of like mistakes during the imprinting process,
well,
or?
I think I made mistakes throughout the whole thing. Not major things. We still managed to hunt successfully. But the imprinting, I made a proper food imprint, because chatting to people, and I wanted to limit the risks of mainly not letting her die because not managing her weight correctly, and to just make it easier to not lose her if she just went off and did her own thing. So at that stage, I thought a food imprint would make my life easier. But yeah, I did end up with a bird that screamed a lot initially.
Yeah.
But to the point where neighbors were upset with us, but once she made, I think, her second or third kill, she was dead silent for the next 4 years. She didn't make a peep. She stayed in the house with us. She didn't scream in the house. She didn't scream when she was ready to go hunting. Out in the field, she was quiet. It was just that initial stage when she was maturing, once she realized she could hunt and she could catch and kill, then she was no longer screaming at me to come and feed her, and then she was quiet. Yeah. So that would be one of my big mistakes, is that having that screamer all over the place and screaming at me, and then just little handling errors and getting her too focused on me rather than on the quarry outside, because she was a young bird, no hunting experience. So she was very often looking at me and waiting for me to bring out the lure, because she was very, very attached to the lure. So she'd know if she wasn't really keen, she'd fly off, chase something, go sit in a tree, and just wait for me to bring out the lure. And mistakes like that, which I would do subtle things differently if I had to imprint another small incipiter again now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I mean, what were you primarily hunting at that time then?
So we were hunting a wide range of quarry, and the reason why I liked her is because I could go to small farms and hunt small birds. So everything from a wren-sized bird up to I think she caught a cock pheasant. We caught a couple of small rabbits. But mainly it was small birds. But I would actively pursue magpies. She had a thing about a magpie. She desperately wanted to get hold of them. So I'd actively pursue them. And then I tried to set up the classical sparrowhawk on blackbird, because that in sparrowhawk hawking in the UK, I got the impression while I was there that the ideal match would be a blackbird or a sparrowhawk hunting a blackbird, a female sparrowhawk on blackbird, and trying to set up those flights. And it was challenging to set them up just right, because to get them to flush into the open space with the sparrowhawk behind them was a challenge. But we did take a few blackbirds while we were there. But I really had to work hard to set those slips up.
Yeah, because even with the element of surprise, and as fast as some of those small accipiter type, short wing type birds are and stuff, you really do need that extra little leg up for them to be able to make ground sometimes.
And there I was hunting a lot on hedgerows with the blackbirds. You're walking down a hedgerow and you've got to try and flush them out into an open space and get them out of the hedge, because they know full well they can move through the hedge way faster than the sparrowhawk can. So you got to try and work at that. It flushes out of that hedge, feels threatened enough to get out of the hedge, even though there's a sparrowhawk about, and you can try and be as sneaky as you want. Those blackbirds know you're coming, and then they can see the sparrowhawk on that glove a mile away.
Sure.
So I spent a lot of time trying to get that right, and I made a few kills of blackbird kills, but it was definitely not the majority.
Yeah, and it's funny how all of a sudden a bird of prey enters the field, and literally every prey item knows instantly that it's there. It's kind of funny how that works.
No, you walk a field with your dogs, and you can see, and you just think, oh, I must come here. This is going to be perfect setup. Look at that bird. Look at this. Get there with a hawk on your glove, and it looks deserted, and there's not a movement in sight, because they all see you coming and they disappear.
Yeah.
So
whenever you were kind of finishing up your tenure in the UK then, and kind of your traveling abroad and stuff, and you knew you wanted to come back to South Africa, and especially this area, I mean, what was kind of the thought on your mind as what you wanted to do next with your falconry at that point?
Well, one of the motivations to come back to South Africa was the possibility of a wild take, because we do have that. It's strictly controlled, but there is that option of wild take, and a variety of species that we can fly here. So African goshawk, Blanna falcon, peregrine falcon, black sparrowhawk, red-breasted sparrowhawk, or rufous-breasted sparrowhawk. Jackal buzzard we allowed to fly, but it's not the best falconry bird. Is not kestrels we allowed to fly. So you've got that option of of a wild take, which was very appealing to me, to the idea of being able to take a bird from the wild, fly it, try and work with it, try and get it doing really, really well. And then once I've had that experience and the interaction with that species, being able to release it back into the wild, and then get a bit of experience with another species. Whereas if you're buying a bird in, I feel like then you've got to stick to it. And in the UK, it was the bird changing hands from one person to the next, and I didn't like it, because there was guys buying in a European goshawk, flying it for a season or two, not being happy, wanting something more exciting, selling it off, buying another one. It just didn't seem right to me. So the option, the ability for me to get experience with multiple species and being able to release them again was very, very appealing. And I've tried to, since I've been back, I've tried to get a bit of experience with multiple different species to find out what I do actually want to do long term. What is going to be my style of falconry? And I'm definitely leaning towards short wings. Short wings on guinea fowl, flying over my dogs. I'm pretty keen for that to be something that I work towards, but it will take some time before I get there and have a team that's working 100%.
Well, and even when we think we're there, half the time we're still kind of not.
Yeah.
It's one of those endless pursuit kind of things.
Exactly.
But well, I mean, so since you've been back, then what has been kind of your path? Like, what have you flown, and what kind of prey have you pursued since being able to kind of join the club here and kind of be more involved in this area's falconry?
Yeah. So since I've been back, I've had the opportunity to fly African goshawk, which was fantastic. A superb little bird that was settled down into that. So a passage female that was hunting successfully, that we trapped, or I trapped, and she settled into the house environment very nicely. And it took her some time to get her hunting, but she was very efficient, and she really did well. And it was towards the end of the season, it was fantastic. Small birds. Lots of walking through the fields, multiple slips, very exciting. So that was a bit of the short wing exposure. Then I've had an opportunity to fly Lana, and she flew beautifully, and she got nice pitch in thermals and did really nicely. But I never really succeeded in getting her hunting successfully. I was wanting to hunt small birds with her waiting on, but I never really got her to switch on and actively pursue or pursue anything with intent. And I mean, I don't know. I obviously made a couple of mistakes there, but the one time I let her go off, she went up into a thermal, out of sight. I knew exactly how much she weighed before she flew off, and then when I did call her back, when I did get her back, I gave her a small meal, and I knew exactly how much she had eaten. But when I weighed her, she weighed more than her weight and that little bit of food that I'd got her. And the whole time she was out of sight, I had the telemetry, and she was above me. So she had on the wing
caught something,
and she was so self-sufficient. She was just waiting for me to present her with an easy meal, and she had me trained. So I flew the Lana, and then I got opportunity, and it's the bird I've got with me now, is a little rescue rufous-breasted sparrow. So a bird that flew into a window, member of the public picked it up and contacted a rehab center, and then I picked it up and trained it, and I flew it last year for 3 months, and we had a lot of fun. She was really enthusiastic and lively, and I was actively pursuing quail at that stage. And towards the end of the season, we did manage to take 2 or 3 quail. I did manage to take 2 or 3 quail, but I had to end up throwing her like the Turkish falconers do when they put the
The darting.
put the sparrowhawk in your right hand, and when something flushes a good slip, then you dart. Otherwise, she was just going for everything that moved in a 50-meter radius, and if she missed, then she'd keep self-hunting, and she was very efficient at that, but it would always be far away from me.
Yeah.
So I ended up just throwing her like a dart, and she took to that very, very quickly. I don't think there was never any difficulty to get her to do it. She accepted it from the first time I tried it, and it worked really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where it would be easier to get like an imprint to be more acceptable to something like that. But like, with a passage bird or something, it's interesting, a species like that in particular. I know Harrises sometimes are really kind of receptive to it to a certain degree too, but it's always interesting seeing some of these birds accept being kind of like casted, and tossed.
I mean, I'll be honest, I tried it with my European sparrowhawk, the imprint, but she wasn't scared of me at all, but she would not tolerate that.
Yeah.
But I think that was because she wasn't scared of me at all. She knew that she could throw a tantrum and I would back off. Whereas the passage bird, I think there's a little component of she's not quite sure what's going on, so her instinct is to freeze up a little bit. But then I can feel her when I'm walking. I can feel her in the hand, and you can feel she's relaxed. And if something flashes in front of her, her whole body tenses up. So and she's watching the quarry. She's not looking at me. I'm holding her, and she's watching what's happening around, because she's also just as amped to catch something. So I think initially she allowed me to pick her up because she was a bit nervous, but she froze. But then very quickly she realized what it meant and accepted it quite well.
Cool. Well, and out of curiosity too, what kind of species of quail do you have around here primarily?
I think it's Coturnix.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but they're quite small, and they like, you get the Coturnix quails that have been bred for production and domestic use, and they probably about 3 or 4 times bigger than the quail we've got running around. I'd have to double check exactly what the subspecies, but it is a Coturnix species. Yeah.
Nifty. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you guys had some of the similar species that are found, around, say parts of like, North America, or if it was, a very different species, or like I said, I mean, it's been one of the more interesting things, as I've mentioned before, is kind of getting to know a little bit the different species of prey that you have here, because it's completely, different. So I was wondering just how different like the quail was and stuff.
Yeah, I think it is a different species to the North American quails. I think you've got a couple of different.
Oh, we've got a lot of different species of quail, but yeah, I mean. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wasn't really sure exactly which countries the Coturnix were kind of prevalent in either. So nifty. Well, like I said, that's cool. So I mean, now that you kind of mentioned, wanting to kind of go back to the short wings and stuff. So what's your next ideal plan?
Well, the ideal. At the moment, my current thinking, and this will probably change 5 times in the next year, but I would like to fly a imprint black spar, female black spar at guinea fowl, and then have the dogs keeping the guinea fowl in the air. But we're not allowed to take. There's no
IS take.
No IS take at the moment, so an imprint is looking unlikely. So for now, I'll just carry on trying different species and different things. I've currently got a captive bred peregrine that I'm trying to get her to fly and hunt pied crow. So it's a fairly big corvid species, and I'm just trying to get it to get confident enough to take them on and hunt them, but it is proving to be a bit of a challenge.
Well, I mean, good luck to you on that. I mean, hopefully that you got, with the different I don't know, passage of time options that you guys will have as you guys continue to work with, the governments here and everything.
Yeah.
And hopefully you'll manage to get, IS take at some point and maybe make that a reality.
Yeah, they're quite adamant at the moment, but it will take a little bit of motivation. And I think if we can justify it and we can prove that we're not permanently taking them out of nature, because their big thing is we need to be borrowing out of nature, not taking for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so their thing is, if you're imprinting, it's a bird that's never going to be able to be released again. Mm-hmm. So you're no longer borrowing. So we'll just have to try and push the social imprint side of it, to say that if they're properly socially imprinted, they could then be released back and become a productive member of the breeding population. But that'll take some time and work.
Yeah. Well, I think now would be a good time to transition to one of our, favorite topics of discussion, which is, some of those memorable, flight stories, birds that you've had. I mean, usually there's at least one, but I mean, is there any kind of particular memory that you have in the field of a particular flight or anything?
I mean, my first bird is always going to be the bird that I have the biggest connection with, and that was the European sparrowhawk. I called her spatchcock, and she really was an enthusiastic bird. And and there's lots of my first kill as a falconer with her was quite memorable. It wasn't a spectacular flight, but it was her across the whole length of a field. I think it was a wheat field that stubble wheat field that she just burst off the glove. I wasn't even 100% sure what she was going for. It must have been a good 30, 40 meters across the field. And as I saw him getting closer, a rook got up off the ground. So also 4 times her size. And as it got off the ground, she hit it. She hit it hard, and she hung onto it like you won't believe. And that was her first kill off the glove. And it was, like I said, not a spectacular flight, but for your first kill as a falconer with a bird that you've imprinted, it will stick with me forever. And my dad was actually visiting me so he had come over from South Africa and was visiting in the UK at the time, and he was with me, and he was able to be there and take videos and take photos and be part of that. It was quite an exciting time.
Awesome. Well, I mean, real quick too, and before we end, I want to go back a little bit to the vet side of things, and something that I meant to touch on earlier, but forgot to ask was, I mean, as you know, the whole avian influenza side of things has just been so impactful on falconers across the world. How has that been here in South Africa compared to other parts of the world? Have you really seen much? I mean, is it a situation where they're not really monitoring it as much, or kind of how's that been here to your knowledge? Anyway?
No, they are monitoring it, and the state vet is keeping records. But I think I'll be speaking out of turn. I'm not quite sure on the status, but avian influenza has been an issue here for a while, and has affected poultry farming, and that's where the main side is the poultry industry, and they're very strict about exposure to wild birds and keeping wild birds off the grounds. Obviously, for falconers, it's a major worry, because lots of the guys during the hunting season are hunting waterfowl, and there is that risk that they do get exposed to it. But I think it's here, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. So we have to just be cautious with what we do and how we do things, and understand the risks involved with what you're flying and where you're flying, and obviously make sure you don't put anyone's flocks of poultry at risk. Don't go and fly next to a chicken farm and potentially get your bird in there in the grounds, because they're going to not take that very, very lightly.
Mm-hmm.
not just because of the avian influenza.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they're not going to want any of their chickens to get eaten either, of course. But, well, like I said, I was just curious because it seems like ducks, like you mentioned, are just such a huge part of falconry prey base here.
In the Western Cape, definitely. It's a big part. The guys that are flying long wings, ducks are quite a predominant quarry species. So it is a concern.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we haven't had too many incidences of it, but it is around, and you have to be cautious. And on the veterinary side and the monitoring side, the state vets are keeping track of it and recording confirmed cases, and so that they know the status and know where hotspots are, and so it is being monitored.
All right. Well, and I mean, I think that we could probably come close to wrapping up here. And, I want to go ahead and ask you the same thing that I've been asking falconers for a while now that I've been doing these podcasts with. And that, I mean, in your point of view, what's some of the better piece of advice or one of the better sentiments that you think you can leave, current, even, prospective falconers? I mean, like I said, you've been doing this for a little while now.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I do this purely for the enjoyment and the pleasure of it. I'm not trying to compete with anyone, and it's not. No one's going to. Well, lots of people will judge you, but it doesn't matter. If you're flying a certain style of falconry and you're enjoying it and you're having a good time and your birds are fit and healthy and you're not doing any harm to your birds and your dogs, and you're not doing negatively impacting the people around you, the farms that you're on, the quarry that you're hunting, just enjoy it. Don't try and emulate or worry about what you think you should be doing or how you should be doing it. Just as long as you're enjoying it and having a good time. Because if you stressing out and you're worrying about what everyone else is thinking about how your bird's performing and what you're doing, you're not going to get any joy out of it, and there's no point in spending all this time, all this money, all this effort on a very specialized hobby. There's just, if you're not enjoying it, what's the point of doing it?
Exactly. Well, and I think that we get so wrapped up in our, for lack of better terms, we get so wrapped up in our own BS with this stuff sometimes, and we get in our own heads, and it's easy to forget that we're not like curing cancer when we're doing this stuff, right?
No. And everyone seems to take it so seriously, and I think I don't know. Everyone seems to take it so seriously, but it's a hobby. You must enjoy it. I don't know. Just it needs to be fun. And you can't be stressing out because this person doesn't like the way you're doing this. So long as you're not doing any harm to your hawk or to the environment and to the people around you, then as long as you're enjoying it, it's all right. But I do feel if you've got a hawk, it needs to hunt. It can't be a display piece. That's also important.
For sure. Well, hopefully at some point we'll get to see some actual hawking sometime.
Yeah. Hopefully this is just the first day and it gets better from here. Yeah. Let's hope.
Well, people keep, knock on wood.
Yeah.
People keep saying tomorrow might be a little bit better weather-wise and stuff. But
tomorrow's meant to be a nice open day.
Yeah.
So but I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes the falconry gods don't always shine down upon us. That's for sure. Unfortunately.
And the Western Cape weather likes to change it at the drop of a hat.
Tell you what, man, I thought Midwest, U.S. weather was bipolar and kind of, all schizophrenic all over the place a little bit. This is, you guys are starting to give my mentality on that a run for its money.
Yeah, no, we like to keep it interesting.
Well, like I said, thanks for the conversation and, for your time. And, we'll, hopefully have some fun as the week continues and get to see some good flights.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure meeting you.
All right. Appreciate it, Kyle.
Cheers.